Worst customer story ever. I would love to hear yours. Drop it in the comments down below. Let me tell you mine. You know, you've heard the eviction story. I know that you've heard some other stories about some folks that we've had issues with in the past, and we've asked them to leave and not come back, that we just weren't a good fit for them. But none of those, and this might be surprising to you, none of those hold a candle to this one. This particular story starts with a automobile coming in after hours. None of us knew that the automobile was coming in. Man filled out a after hours form, called the next day, gave us a list of things he wanted checked out. We check them out. We should have known, because when we call back to go over everything with him, he makes no sense at all, right? You just can't understand what in the world he's talking about. He's talking in circles all the way around the service advisors. And eventually we get to the point that we're asking for authorization. You guys know that we never do any work on an automobile until we have authorization, verbal, and if possible, either electronic or signature in person. And so all of a sudden, when we got to the point that it was like time to say yes, still working in this circle, all over the place, and he says, "Do you guys take credit cards?" And my service advisor at the time says, "Yeah, we sure do." And he says, "Okay, good, yeah, go ahead and do all that." Now, we should have known right then what was up. Either way, we go through this process, and as you guys know, sometimes we have to do additional testing, get more information, go through the process, and then we make more estimates. And so that was one of those cases with this automobile. We go through the whole deal, call him back, same thing. Every time we talk to this guy, you just can't make any sense. But then when you ask him to approve, all of a sudden he speaks with perfect clarity, makes a ton of sense, everything's great. Get the additional approvals, call him up, tell him his car's done. He says, "Okay, I'll be there in a few days to get it." My dear friend Nathan, who's gonna be so frustrated that I mentioned his name in this video, was my service advisor at the time, or one of my service advisors. That afternoon, even though the man said it'd be a few days, he calls and he says, "Hey, I'm gonna be there in a little bit to get my car. I've had COVID and I can't come in. There's no way I could come up there. Could you just take my credit card over the phone?" Now here's the lesson, okay? I want you to hear me. When you take a telephone payment for a credit card, that money is not yours until the credit card company, in other words, the issuer, Visa, MasterCard, whoever, until their chargeback period is over, and that can be a long time. In other words, it's not your money until they say it's your money. Any electronic payment, anything online, phone is way worse, but even electronic payments, you're just not guaranteed to get that money. Long story short, that man charged back over $10,000 before he pulled out of the parking lot and said that he didn't appreciate the quality of the product. Now, we do a quality control process. We know that thing was fixed right. Took me months of calling this man, navigating through this, couldn't get any sense out of him. He called me every name in the book. Finally had to get law enforcement involved, didn't end up having to go to court. And again, he talked circles. He said real derogatory things to the law enforcement, talked circles around them too, right up until the point that they pointed out that what he had done was a felony. That afternoon he called me, he apologized profusely, spoke clearly as day, made perfect sense. First time in the entire process that he had really made any sense at all. Made a ton of excuses, apologized and paid me. Now I ended up giving him some money, or I actually sent the car to the dealership just because I said I don't want there to be any question. Sent it to the dealership. They said some stuff was wrong, stuff that we hadn't even touched. I even paid to fix that. I'm gonna tell you something. It was the craziest experience I've ever been through with a client. In fact, it resulted in multiple additional new policies and procedures in the shop to try and prevent those things from happening again. I'd love to hear your crazy story. Drop it in the comments down below. If you don't care, give this a like and a share. You guys have a good day.